The karmic bond between parent and child. Let's pause, just for a moment. Take a slow, gentle breath in, and exhale everything that isn't here right now. Now, I want to ask you something, not with the mind, but with the heart. Have you ever looked into your child's eyes, whether your own or a child close to your life, and felt a strange kind of recognition? As if you've known this soul before time began? In Buddhist and Zen understanding, that feeling is not just sentimentality. It is the echo of karma, the invisible thread that connects two souls beyond lifetimes. The relationship between parent and child is never just biology. It's not simply about who raised whom, who gave birth, or who signed the papers. It's something much older, deeper, a karmic bond, a sacred contract. In this view, children don't just arrive, they return. They come not only to be fed, taught, and protected, but to reveal, to reflect, to awaken what lies dormant in us. They show us the beauty we've forgotten and the wounds we haven't yet faced. And so, parenting becomes more than a role. It becomes a spiritual path. You might ask, but how is my child my teacher? Look closely. A crying infant teaches presence. You can't schedule love. You can't intellectualize a sleepless night. In those moments, only patience, only presence can meet the need. A stubborn toddler? Maybe they're not just testing your limits. Maybe they're mirroring the resistance you carry inside. Resistance to control or to surrender. A rebellious teenager? Perhaps they're awakening the parts of you that were never allowed to be free. In this way, every moment with a child becomes a mirror, sometimes gentle, sometimes sharp, but always honest. And the question shifts from, how do I fix this child, to, what are they reflecting in me? That doesn't mean we let go of boundaries or structure, but it means we stop using control as a substitute for self-awareness. Zen has a saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Sometimes the teacher arrives as a newborn. Sometimes they show up late at night in mismatched pajamas, asking a question that pierces through your illusions. Why are you sad, Mom? Why are you always so tired, Dad? In their innocence, they hold up a mirror to the adult's forgotten self. The truth is, a child is not only your karma, they are also your key to remembering who you are beneath all the adult masks, your chance to meet the inner child within you, the one still longing for approval, for love, for peace. And no, this doesn't mean every parent-child relationship is soft or easy. Some are stormy, some are heartbreaking, some are filled with years of silence. But even then, the karmic invitation is still there. What needs to be seen? What needs to be healed? What old cycle is asking to end through you? To parent, or even to witness a child's growth, is to watch karma in motion. It's a chance to break generational chains, not by force, but through awareness. So I leave you with this reflection. Could it be that this child in your life, challenging or calm, expected or unplanned, is not here by accident? Could it be that you chose each other long before either of you arrived? And if that's true, then perhaps parenting is not something to survive, but something to awaken through. A sacred classroom where love is the lesson and presence is the path. Let this be the beginning, not of raising a child, but of raising your soul together with theirs. Part 1. The Karmic Seed. Why your child is never just a child. Pause for a moment and take a slow breath with me. Now imagine this. Somewhere in the silent stillness of time, a seed was planted, not in soil, but in spirit. And that seed is what we call karma. In Buddhist thought, karma simply means action with intention. Every word you speak, every decision you make, rooted in emotion, desire, or fear, leaves an imprint. And these imprints don't disappear. They travel across time, across lifetimes, until one day they sprout. Sometimes they sprout in the form of a child. A child doesn't arrive in your life by chance. From the Buddhist lens, they arrive when the karmic seed has ripened, when something deep within your energy field is ready to be reflected, healed, or transformed. And this child, whether planned or unexpected, is never just here to be raised. They are also here to raise something within you. Their personality, their tendencies, even the things that trigger you are not random. A defiant child may not just be difficult. They might be mirroring the parts of you that resist flexibility, the stubbornness you inherited from your father, or the unspoken need for control you've carried silently for years. A quiet child might not simply be shy. They might be reflecting back the wounds you never dared to speak out loud. A child who lashes out may not be bad. They may be echoing the rage you never gave yourself permission to feel. Karma is not just about what you do. It's also about what you see through others, especially through those closest to you. So when a child acts out, a mindful parent doesn't just say, "What's wrong with you?" Instead, they ask, "What are you showing me?" This shift from reaction to reflection is what transforms parenting into a spiritual practice. Have you ever noticed how certain traits in your child feel strangely familiar? Maybe they remind you of someone from your past. Or maybe, in a moment of frustration, you realize they're reflecting the very thing you swore you'd never become. That's not a mistake. That's the karmic mirror. We often think we're raising a brand new being, but in truth, we're also facing echoes of ourselves, both the healed and the unhealed parts. There's a quiet truth that many parents discover, sometimes too late. My child wasn't the one who needed to change. I was. And that realization doesn't come with shame. It comes with freedom. Because when you begin to see your child not just as a responsibility, but as a reflection, a space opens up for compassion, for understanding, for growth. This doesn't mean children don't have their own unique souls or purposes. They do, profound ones. But their soul chose you, not just for who you are, but for what your presence, your history, and yes, your karma would awaken in them. And they are awakening something in you. So the next time you feel frustration rising, pause. When your child refuses to listen, or when they withdraw into silence, or when they push boundaries that leave you confused, breathe. And ask yourself, is this just about them? Or is this showing me something within myself? Maybe it's a pattern. Maybe it's a wound. Maybe it's an old story waiting to be rewritten. From this perspective, even the hardest moments of parenting become sacred. Each tantrum becomes a teaching. Each test of patience becomes a practice. Each disagreement becomes a doorway into self-awareness. And every interaction becomes a chance to break a cycle that's been silently passed down through generations of fear, silence, and misunderstanding. This is what it means to say, your child is your karma. Not your punishment, not your reward, but your mirror, your lesson, your healing. You planted the seed long ago. Now it grows, not just in them, but in you. Let that be a reason not for guilt, but for gratitude. Because in the reflection of your child, you are given something rare in this world, a second chance. A chance to see yourself more clearly. A chance to soften where you've been hard. A chance to grow alongside the one you thought you were here to guide. Part 2. The Womb of Repetition. When parenting echoes the past. Take a deep breath with me. Gently, slowly. Now pause and ask yourself, have you ever said, "I'll never be like my parents," only to one day hear your own voice sound just like theirs? This is the womb of repetition, the silent cycle of karma passed down not just through stories or traditions, but through emotional patterns, unconscious reactions, and buried wounds. Many of us grow up carrying the weight of pain we never asked for. Maybe it was a critical parent. Maybe it was cold silence instead of affection. Maybe it was the constant pressure to be someone we weren't. And deep in our hearts, we vowed, "I won't do that to my child." But then the child comes, and suddenly, without meaning to, we repeat. Not because we're bad, not because we didn't mean our promises, but because the past, when unhealed, doesn't disappear. It waits. It waits quietly in our nervous systems, in our muscle memory, in the way we raise our voices, in the way we shut down when things get too hard. A child doesn't just bring joy, they bring light, and that light shines directly on the parts of us we've kept in shadow. They cry, and our patience crumbles. They rebel, and our fear surges. They ask for more, and we feel inadequate, or angry, or ashamed. Why? Because their innocence stirs something ancient. Their vulnerability awakens our own forgotten needs. Their very presence becomes the key that unlocks the past we thought we had left behind. Zen teaches, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This is why sometimes parenting doesn't just feel hard, it feels familiar. Because in many ways, you're not just parenting your child, you're reparenting the child you once were. Have you ever wondered why certain moments with your child feel so emotionally intense, even when they seem small on the surface? Maybe your child ignores you, and it triggers a deep feeling of invisibility. Maybe they talk back, and it brings up old memories of never being allowed to speak. Maybe they cry, and it makes you uncomfortable because no one held space for your tears when you were young. These reactions aren't flaws, they're echoes, and they're invitations. Your child, knowingly or not, is awakening the part of you that still needs healing. And here's the sacred paradox. While you think you're raising them, they're helping to raise the forgotten parts of you. But only if you're willing to look. Only if, instead of reacting blindly, you pause, take a breath, reflect. What is this moment teaching me about myself? This isn't about blaming your parents or shaming yourself. It's about awakening. Because what was once passed down in silence can stop with you, in awareness. Think of it this way. Each moment you choose patience over punishment, compassion over control, presence over programming, you're breaking a karmic chain that may have existed for generations. Your family lineage doesn't just carry genetics. It carries emotion, memory, patterns. You can be the one who transforms it. Not by being perfect, but by being present. Even one mindful moment can change the entire direction of a child's emotional life. Even one loving choice can rewrite the story your inner child never got to hear. And that is the power of conscious parenting. So if you find yourself repeating what once hurt you, don't despair. That realization is a beginning. It means you're waking up. It means you're not doomed to repeat the past. You're being offered the chance to repair it. Your child didn't come to be your clone. They didn't come to carry your wounds. They came to remind you it's never too late to choose a new way. So breathe, begin again, and let the cycle of unconsciousness end with you. Part 3. The Silent Teacher in the Crib. Let's pause for a moment. Close your eyes, if only in your mind, and imagine this. You're holding a newborn child in your arms. They cannot speak. They cannot reason. They don't know your name. And yet, Something in their presence demands your full attention. Your body softens, your breath slows, your heart listens in a way it rarely does. This is the beginning of a silent transmission. Long before a child learns to speak, they are already teaching. And if you're listening, not just with ears, but with awareness, you'll hear the lessons clearly. A Zen master once said, "The baby is the teacher, the parent is the student." To the logical mind, this sounds backwards. We imagine parenting to be about shaping, guiding, correcting. But in the world of Zen, everything is reversed, because truth often hides in simplicity. The crying baby teaches patience. The restless toddler teaches flexibility. The endlessly curious child demands presence. These aren't abstract virtues. They are embodied daily tests. When you haven't slept in 3 nights and the baby still cries, can you respond with gentleness? When you've planned your day and your child suddenly wants to explore every crack in the sidewalk, can you let go of control? When you're on your phone, distracted, and your child looks up into your eyes, can you return to this moment fully? Children don't come to us as blank slates. They arrive as spiritual catalysts, tiny Zen bells ringing softly or sometimes very loudly, reminding us to wake up. And yet, many parents miss the teachings. Why? Because we've been taught that parenting is a job, a responsibility, a list of tasks: feed, bathe, educate, discipline, repeat. But if we only view it that way, we reduce parenting to survival, not awakening. We become reactive. We rush through bedtimes. We silence tantrums instead of understanding them. We chase obedience instead of cultivating connection. And slowly, we lose sight of the invitation hidden in it all. What if every difficult moment was actually a spiritual gate? What if the crying child wasn't just testing your patience, but softening your ego? What if the boredom, the mess, the chaos were all sacred? Because here's the truth. No meditation cushion, no retreat, no monastery will test you like a child will. And that's not a problem. That's the path. Imagine it this way. Each tantrum is a mirror. It shows you how you respond to loss of control. Each refusal is a koan, a Zen riddle, asking, "Can you love me even when I disobey?" Each question from your child, "Why is the sky blue?" or "Where do people go when they die?" is not just curiosity. It's a nudge to your soul. Have you forgotten to wonder? Children ask us to return, not just to them, but to ourselves. To the patience we never cultivated. To the presence we always postponed. To the parts of us that got buried beneath adulthood and expectations. That's why the child is the teacher. They strip us bare, and in that rawness, we find humility. They interrupt our plans, and in that disruption, we find surrender. They need us completely, and in that need, we find the cracks in our own emotional foundation. Not everyone is ready for this kind of teaching, and that's okay. But for those who are, even in fleeting moments, it transforms everything. Parenting becomes more than duty. It becomes devotion. More than noise, it becomes a form of mindfulness. More than stress, it becomes spiritual training. So the next time your child pushes you past your edge, breathe. Not to suppress the moment, but to enter it. Ask, what is this moment inviting me to learn? And you might just discover that the one who cannot yet speak has already taught you more than any book ever could. Part 4. The Mirror of the Self. Let's take a breath. Just one honest, quiet breath. Have you ever looked into your child's eyes, not to guide them, correct them, or teach them, but simply to see? What looked back? Was it their soul, or was it your expectations? In the stillness of parenting, there comes a moment, sometimes subtle, sometimes startling, when you realize that your child is not only growing into themselves, they're also growing into the spaces you left behind. The things you didn't finish, the dreams you didn't pursue, the love you didn't receive. This is where unconscious parenting begins, and also where conscious awakening is possible. Most of us step into parenthood with the deepest love. We want to protect, to guide, to give our children what we never had. That's natural. That's beautiful. But somewhere along the way, our love quietly merges with fear. I want my child to succeed where I failed. I'll give them the love I never got. I must keep them safe, always. These thoughts sound noble, but they're often rooted in attachment, not freedom, in control, not compassion. And here's where Zen speaks with clarity. Let go or be dragged. If we are not careful, our children stop being themselves. They become projects, extensions of our egos, silent actors in a play we started writing long before they were born. You see, when we unconsciously project our unresolved emotions onto our children, we're not loving them, we're using them. Not maliciously, but unknowingly. A father who was once denied approval may push his son relentlessly to be the best. A mother who felt unprotected may suffocate her daughter in an effort to keep her safe. On the surface, it looks like love, but underneath, it's fear wearing a mask. The child, sensitive and impressionable, senses this. They feel the pressure to perform, to become the golden child, to be the healing balm for their parents' unhealed wounds. And slowly, a quiet tragedy unfolds. They stop becoming who they truly are and start becoming who you need them to be. That's not parenting. That's spiritual entrapment, done with love but damaging nonetheless. And it's why the teachings of Zen urge us to pause, to ask, am I guiding my child or scripting them? Am I offering support or seeking validation? Am I loving their truth or molding them to fit mine? True parenting in the spirit of mindfulness is not about shaping. It's about witnessing, about allowing your child to unfold like a flower, not according to your calendar, but in their own rhythm. This takes courage. It takes letting go of the fantasy child, the one who becomes a doctor, who never rebels, who always makes you proud. It takes making space for the real child, the one who may fail, fall, wander, or choose paths you fear. But in that letting go, something sacred happens. You no longer relate to your child through your ego. You relate to them through your soul. And from that place, your love becomes clean, unconditional, light. You don't carry them, you walk beside them. You don't define them, you honor them. And in doing so, you both become free. So if you find yourself clinging, gently loosen your grip. If you find yourself scripting, pause and listen. Your child did not come to complete your story. They came with one of their own. The question is, will you give them the space to write it? Part 5. The Return of the Past. Let's slow down and sit with this truth. Sometimes the child you're raising seems to echo a memory you never spoke aloud. Not a memory from their life, but from yours. Have you ever watched your child act out something that felt eerily familiar, yet you couldn't explain why? A certain look in their eyes, a repeated behavior, a feeling they carry that you've long buried inside. What if they aren't just being difficult? What if they are reflecting something your family never healed? In the spiritual lens of Buddhism and Zen, this is not coincidence. This is karma, returning not to punish, but to reveal, to reveal. A child who lies may carry the unspoken dishonesty that once lingered in the home. A child who isolates might echo the loneliness of an ancestor who was never understood. A child with deep mistrust could be mirroring the wounds of betrayal passed down silently, generation after generation. We often forget, families are not just made of people. They are made of energies, stories, unfinished emotions. And children, by some sacred agreement we may never fully understand, step into those energetic fields, carrying keys to unlock doors their parents refuse to open. This doesn't mean that your child is broken. It means they are carrying something too heavy, too old, too unresolved, and they need you to see it. Not fix it, not scold it, but see it with the eyes of compassion. You may ask, why would any soul take this on? Why would a child inherit wounds that were never theirs? And the answer, though mysterious, is this: healing moves where love dares to go. Children are often not the cause of suffering, they are the continuation of it, until someone finally chooses to break the cycle. And sometimes that someone is you. You may not have chosen the pain that was passed to you, but you have the sacred choice to not pass it on. This is the spiritual purpose of family, not perfection, not tradition, but transformation. In the Zen tradition, they say karma doesn't simply repeat, it seeks resolution. Every time you choose presence over reaction, softness over shame, truth over silence, you interrupt the loop. You liberate not only yourself, but your child. And even more, you bring peace to the ancestors who never got the chance. This is why your child is not just your child. They are the mirror of what still hurts, the echo of what was forgotten, the opportunity to make a different choice. But here's the paradox. Healing doesn't come from controlling your child's behavior. It comes from recognizing what that behavior is calling you to face within yourself. So the next time your child acts out, pause, breathe, and ask gently, what in me is being mirrored? What in my family has never been named? This doesn't mean you stop guiding them. It means you guide them not from reactivity, but from awareness. And when you begin to see your child as a sacred messenger, not just a responsibility, you'll understand that even their most difficult moments are part of a greater healing. Parenting then becomes more than just raising a child. It becomes the place where past, present, and future meet. It becomes the altar where karma is seen, understood, and released, not through rituals, but through presence. So if your child triggers something ancient inside you, something you can't even put words to, don't turn away. Lean in. Their soul may be offering you the gift your ancestors never received, a second chance to heal.
Part 6. The Test of Letting Go. Let's begin with a Zen truth that often feels uncomfortable. Cling to nothing, not even your own child. At first glance, this teaching sounds almost cruel. How could one not cling to their child? Isn't holding on the very definition of love? But Zen doesn't speak in cruelty. It speaks in clarity. Because the opposite of clinging is not indifference, it's freedom. And the highest form of love is freedom. In the quiet spaces of parenting, where love runs deepest, the temptation to grasp is strongest. We want to protect, to guide, to hold close. But sometimes, unknowingly, we smother, we overstep, we confuse our fear with care. And fear has a way of wearing a disguise that looks a lot like love. Have you ever caught yourself thinking, I just want them to succeed. I don't want them to make the same mistakes I did. I need them to stay close forever. These thoughts may sound noble, but if you listen more deeply, you'll often find they're rooted in fear. Fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of being alone. And fear, when left unchecked, becomes attachment. Attachment says, you are mine. Love says, you are free. Letting go is not the same as giving up. It's not about walking away or becoming emotionally distant. It's about recognizing that your child is not a project, not a possession, and not a reflection of your worth. They are a soul on a path that may look different from yours, sometimes radically so. There will be seasons when your child doesn't listen, when they challenge your values, when they walk away from everything you hoped they would hold on to. And in those moments, you'll be given a choice: cling tighter or release with grace. To cling is to believe that your version of life is the only one that's safe. To release is to trust that the soul knows what it needs, even if it stumbles, even if it falls. This is not easy. It's easy to love a child who mirrors your beliefs. Harder to love a child who questions everything you stand for. It's easy to feel peace when your child stays close. Much harder when they drift far, emotionally or physically. But spiritual love, true love, isn't dependent on conditions. It says, even if you choose a path I don't understand, I still honor your journey. That's the essence of Zen parenting. It doesn't mean abandoning guidance. It means offering it without force, being a light, not a leash. You may wonder, but if I don't hold on, how will I keep them safe? The deeper truth is, you never could. Control is an illusion. You can guide, teach, model, but ultimately, your child must walk their own path. And if they stumble, it may be the exact stumble that awakens them. So, can you love them through the falling? Can you trust the wisdom of their own soul? Letting go is one of the greatest spiritual initiations a parent will ever face. And every stage of parenting asks for it in new ways. You let go when they take their first step. You let go when they speak their own truth. You let go when they walk into the world alone. And one day, you may let go without even saying goodbye. But if you've truly loved, not by clinging, but by honoring, you've already given them everything. Because the child who feels loved in freedom carries something far more powerful than the child who feels loved under control. They carry trust, inner resilience, a sense of worth not based on performance, but on presence. Zen says, the flower does not cling to the bee, it simply blooms. In the same way, your role is to bloom in love, fully, deeply, without attachment, and trust that your child, in their time, will bloom too. So ask yourself, what would change if I stopped trying to mold my child and started meeting them as they are? What might open if I stopped fearing their distance and started trusting their path? To love and let go is not a contradiction. It's the highest offering of the heart. It is, in the end, the purest form of parenting. Part 7. The child who breaks you. Let's talk about the child no one wants to admit they have. The one who doesn't bring peace, but chaos. The one who doesn't follow rules, but breaks every one of them. The one who doesn't fit into your dreams of parenthood, but tears those dreams apart and leaves you raw, questioning everything. Not all children arrive in our lives wrapped in joy. Some arrive as fire. Some come not to soothe, but to shake. And yet, even that shaking carries a purpose. Buddhist wisdom teaches us that karma doesn't always show up as comfort. Sometimes it shows up as challenge, as resistance, as a soul so intense it pushes every button, tests every limit, and unravels every illusion we thought we had mastered. Have you ever found yourself thinking, why is my child so difficult? Why does this feel like punishment? Why me? These aren't just rhetorical questions. They are invitations to look deeper, to see beyond the surface behavior and recognize maybe this child didn't come to make life easy. Maybe they came to make life real. What if this child, this soul, isn't broken, but is here to break something in you? Not to destroy you, but to dismantle the parts of you that were never whole to begin with. Your need to control, your unhealed past, your deep, unspoken fears. The child who breaks you is often the one carrying the heaviest karma, whether inherited or chosen. Perhaps they come as the echo of a soul you once harmed, or perhaps they carry their own burdens and chose you because at some soul level they knew you could hold that fire, even if it burns. It doesn't mean you have to enjoy the pain, but it does mean you can choose how you meet it. Some parents crumble, others grow. Some fall into bitterness, others awaken into humility. And humility, in the deepest spiritual sense, is the moment we stop asking life to match our expectations and start bowing to what it is. This child who refuses to be controlled may be your greatest teacher. This child who triggers your deepest rage may be awakening your hidden grief. This child who makes you feel like a failure may be offering you the chance to finally redefine success. Because success isn't about obedience. It's not about whether your child brings you pride or praise. Success in parenting, at least from the Zen perspective, is measured by how deeply you love, even when your love is not returned. It's measured by how you stay present, even when everything inside you wants to run away. And maybe, just maybe, the child who breaks you is the one who breaks you open. To surrender, to silence, to the kind of love that has no conditions. Let's be clear, this doesn't mean accepting abuse or ignoring serious issues. Boundaries still matter, structure still matters. But what shifts is the energy behind them. Instead of saying, "I must fix this child," we begin to ask, "What is this child reflecting in me?" Instead of reacting with punishment, we begin responding with presence. This isn't weakness, it's spiritual strength. It's standing in the fire of emotion and not flinching. It's crying on the bathroom floor one moment and choosing to show up again the next. It's realizing that parenting isn't about being in control. It's about being in communion. And some of the deepest communion happens in the breaking. When we've run out of strategies, when our ego has no more defenses, when we fall to our knees and whisper, "I don't know what else to do," that's when the sacred begins. Because when we no longer rely on control, we're forced to reach for compassion. And compassion, real compassion, isn't soft or sentimental. It's fierce. It's honest. It looks chaos in the eye and still chooses to love. So if your child has brought you pain, if they've shattered your sense of self or shaken your idea of what a family should look like, know this: you are not cursed. You are being called. Called to a higher form of love. Called to awaken what no book, no teacher, no mantra could ever show you. Called to burn away who you thought you were and rise in the quiet power of surrender. Because sometimes the child who breaks you is the very one who sets your soul free. Part 8. The Karmic Gift of Presence. Take a breath with me. A slow, quiet one. Now imagine this. You're standing at the doorway watching your child sleep. The room is dim. Their breath is soft. The world, for a brief moment, is still. And in that stillness, something shifts. You realize this child doesn't need to achieve anything, doesn't need to behave perfectly, doesn't need to impress or succeed. They are enough, simply because they're here. That presence, pure, unfiltered, raw, is the gift. In Buddhist thought, we often speak of karma as cause and effect, as cycles playing out across lifetimes. But here's something quieter, more profound. Karma also unfolds in presence, in the way we show up, in the space between action and reaction. You see, every moment with a child is a chance to break a chain or to continue one. When you're feeding them, you're not just filling their stomach. You're offering energy, love, attention, safety that echoes far beyond the meal. When you're listening, you're not just hearing their words, you're healing generations who were never heard. When you're truly present, not distracted, not rushing, you become more than a parent. You become a karmic alchemist. Because presence isn't passive, it's transformational. It takes real strength to slow down, especially in a world that tells you to rush. It takes deep awareness to sit with your child, to look into their eyes and not see expectations, but see their soul. So many of us were raised in systems where love felt earned, where approval was conditional, where success determined worth. But what if this child came into your life not to repeat that, but to undo it? What if your real task isn't to raise a perfect human, but to remember how to love without conditions? No spiritual teaching is more powerful than presence. No mantra more healing than your calm gaze. No ritual more sacred than being fully here now. And yes, some days are messy. Some days your child will scream, break things, test every nerve. But even that is part of the dance. Because presence doesn't mean perfection. It means you keep returning to breath, to stillness, to love. There's a Zen saying, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. In other words, the sacred is hidden in the simple. Changing diapers, packing lunch, waiting in line at the doctor's office. These are not interruptions to your spiritual path. They are your path. Your child may never remember the exact words you said, but they will remember your energy, your eyes, your warmth, your presence. And the truth is, that's what transforms karma. Not punishment, not pressure, not perfection, but the quiet, unwavering light of your love. So, the next time you feel like you're not doing enough as a parent, pause. Ask yourself, can I just be here with them? Can you sit with the tantrum without trying to fix it? Can you celebrate their silence without needing a performance? Can you be with them, not as a teacher, not as a judge, but as a witness? If you can, you are already cleansing karma. You are already rewriting history, not just for your child, but for every version of you that once felt unseen. Because to love a child as they are is to love the world as it could be. And to be present for them, moment by moment, is the highest gift you will ever give. Not just to them, but to yourself, to your ancestors, to your future, to the great river of life that brought you both here.
Part 9. The Child Awakens the Inner Child. Take a slow breath with me. Let it settle. Now ask yourself, why is it that sometimes the smallest things your child does, like ignoring your words or bursting into tears, can spark something so big in you? Why does a disobedient moment trigger anger, not just in your mind, but in your chest, in your breath, in your bones? What if that reaction isn't really about them? In the language of spiritual insight, we call this the awakening of the inner child. You see, your child isn't just here to carry forward your name, your teachings, or even your dreams. They're here, unknowingly, to stir what still sleeps within you, the child you once were. The part of you that was never fully heard, the part that longed to be held when no one had the time, the part that still carries echoes of shame, fear, or confusion. And when your child cries, your inner child remembers crying too. When your child shouts, your inner child recalls the silence they were forced into. And when your child pulls away, maybe your younger self remembers the pain of being left behind. We often say parenting is hard because children push our limits, but sometimes it's because they touch wounds we forgot we had. This isn't to blame anyone, it's to see clearly. Buddhism teaches that healing doesn't begin by avoiding the pain,
It begins by noticing it, holding it gently, and breathing through it. So when your child does something that triggers a deep reaction in you, pause. Not because you're weak, but because you're wise. That moment, right there, is a crossroads. You can continue the karmic loop, or you can shift the pattern. Imagine this. Your child is screaming, refusing to put on their shoes. You feel the familiar tension rising, your voice tightening, your chest clenching. But instead of yelling, you breathe. You ask yourself not what's wrong with them, but what's surfacing in me. Maybe it's a memory. Maybe it's a story you've told yourself for years, that being ignored means you're not respected, or that losing control means you're failing. Whatever it is, if you can stay with it, something changes. Because in that breath, you're not just calming your child. You're comforting your younger self. You're being the parent you once needed, right now, in real time. This is why spiritual traditions say the path of parenting is not just about raising a child, it's about raising the child within. No therapist, no retreat, no meditation app can give you this particular opportunity. Only a real child, with their rawness, honesty, and wild emotions, can bring you this close to your own buried emotions. And yes, it's messy. Sometimes it feels like failure, but it's not. It's sacred. The Zen path doesn't ask us to be perfect. It invites us to be present, fully, even when we shake, even when we cry behind the door. Each moment of reactivity is not just a bad parenting moment. It's an alarm clock for the soul. So, what do? We begin with awareness. Instead of reacting, we pause. Instead of yelling, we listen, first to ourselves, then to them. Instead of numbing, we breathe. And in that breath, karma softens. Because when we respond with consciousness rather than conditioning, we're not just parenting, we're transforming. We're becoming whole again. There is a beautiful paradox in all this. The more we parent with awareness, the more we begin to reparent ourselves. We become softer, less harsh. We begin to forgive not just our children, but our own younger selves. The child who once made mistakes, the child who wasn't always met with grace. And that forgiveness ripples. It heals not only this moment, but generations behind and ahead. So if today you felt overwhelmed, if you snapped or shut down or cried in secret, pause. You didn't fail. You were invited. Invited to notice what still aches inside. And when you notice, don't run from it. Sit with it. Breathe with it. Maybe even thank your child, not just for being in your life, but for being the one soul brave to wake you up. Because in the end, parenting is not just a role we play. It's a return to the parts of ourselves still waiting to be seen.
Part 10. The karmic cycle can be broken. Let's take a gentle breath together. And as you exhale, release the weight of who you think you were supposed to be. Because here's a quiet truth that many parents carry, but few speak out loud. Guilt. The kind that lingers after you've raised your voice, after you slammed the door, after you walked away when you should have leaned in. Maybe you've whispered to yourself, I promised I wouldn't become like them, and yet I did. Or maybe you've looked at your child's tears and wondered if you've already caused a kind of damage that can't be undone. But I want to offer you something deeply freeing today. Your guilt, as heavy and noble as it may feel, is also part of your karma. Yes, just like anger, silence, or shame, guilt too can become a chain that keeps you tied to the past, playing out the same scripts over and over, calling it regret when really it's a loop. Zen wisdom reminds us each breath is a fresh beginning, not just a moment to pause, but a doorway. Every breath you take right now is a chance to start over, not only with your child, but with yourself.
You see, karma is not punishment. It's memory in motion. It repeats itself until one person becomes conscious enough to interrupt the rhythm. And that person can be you. All it takes is one awakened heart in a lineage of unconscious patterns to shift everything. One moment of choosing love over control. One apology offered with presence. One quiet breath taken instead of a reaction unleashed. You are not here to be perfect. You are here to be present. Let me ask you this. What if the way you raise your child today isn't just shaping their life, but is echoing backwards, healing wounds from your own childhood, from your parents' childhood, from generations you've never even met? What if your willingness to soften, to reflect, to try again is enough? There's a beautiful truth that often gets lost in the noise of parenting advice. You don't have to fix everything you've ever done. You only need to show up differently now. And that now is always available. Right now, in the middle of this video. Right now, even if the last hour was full of frustration. Right now, even if you haven't spoken to your child in days or even years. Healing doesn't begin with grand gestures. It begins with humility. A parent kneeling by a child's bed whispering, "I see now what I didn't before." A text message that says, "I'm sorry, I'm learning." Or even just sitting in silence, hands over heart, sending love to a grown child who no longer calls, but who once looked at you like you were the whole world. You're still their world, you know? Maybe not the center anymore, but the sky they were born under. And even if that sky once thundered, even if it rained too hard, today it can clear. Today, you can be the stillness they remember later in life, when they themselves are reaching for patience or forgiveness or grace. Because the karmic cycle isn't broken by words alone. It's broken by presence, by showing up again and again with a little more awareness than yesterday. And when you stumble, and you will, remember, stumbling is still movement. Guilt wants to freeze you in place, but awareness wants to walk with you forward. So the next time you hear that voice in your head say, "You messed up again," take a breath and say back, "But I'm here now." That is how karma melts. That is how lineage shifts. And that is, perhaps for the first time in generations, love becomes louder than fear. So don't let the past define you. Let it remind you, not of your failure, but of your capacity to rise, to breathe, to begin again. Part 11. When the child leaves. Let's pause here for a moment. Place your hand on your heart and think of the child you've raised or are still raising. Maybe they're 5 years old and full of questions. Maybe they're 35 and haven't called in a while. Maybe they've walked out the door and you're still sitting by the window. No matter the age or the distance, one thing is certain. The child eventually leaves. And that, too, is sacred. They may leave with gratitude or with unresolved pain. They may leave gently, waving from the edge of the driveway, or they may slam the door without saying goodbye. But however they go, one truth remains unchanged. The spiritual connection never ends. Zen teaches us the flower does not cling to the bee, it simply blossoms. You don't bloom because they stay. You bloom because it is your nature to love, without clinging. We often confuse love with attachment. We think, if they leave, something is lost. But what if their leaving is part of their unfolding? What if letting go is part of yours? A conscious parent learns that love is not measured by how tightly you hold on, but by how freely you let them grow. And here's the paradox. The more presence you offer while they are with you, the more deeply that love stays with them when they are gone. That presence becomes their inner voice. It echoes in their quiet moments, shapes the way they hold others, and reminds them, even in their loneliest nights, that they were once loved without condition. That is the true gift of awakened parenting.
It's not about creating perfect memories. It's not about always being right or always being there. It's about the quality of your awareness while you were. Think of a moment you shared with your child where time felt suspended. Maybe it was brushing their hair before school, laughing in the kitchen while making a mess, sitting in the car in silence after an argument. That moment lives on long after they've left the house, not because it was extraordinary, but because you were fully there. Sometimes, though, we don't part in peace. Sometimes the child leaves carrying wounds, and the parent stays behind with questions. Did I do enough? Why did they stop talking to me? Will they ever come back? Those questions are heavy, but they are also doorways. Doorways to deeper compassion, to releasing the need for answers, to trusting the karmic thread that still weaves your two lives together. Because here's the miracle. Even if they never come back physically, even if words are never exchanged again, the love you offered in presence is already part of them. You don't have to reach them with logic. You can reach them through stillness. A quiet prayer, a whispered blessing, a soft gaze at an old photo that says, "I see you, I love you, I let you go." And if they do return one day, you'll meet again, not as parent and child bound by duty, but as two souls who have grown in the space between. That space is not empty. It's where karma breathes. It's where healing happens. So what can we do after they've walked away? We keep blooming. We keep growing. We keep loving, quietly, steadily, without expectation. Because love that is rooted in presence doesn't need to be proven, it simply is. If you've parented with awareness, that love will travel with them, even if they don't recognize it at first. And if you've stumbled, if the past is full of shadows, remember, it's never too late to heal. Energy moves beyond time and space. A single moment of true intention can shift lifetimes of karma. So sit, reflect, offer light from wherever you are. Because when the child leaves, karma doesn't end, it transforms. Part 12. The Parent's Final Liberation. Sometimes, awakening arrives late. Not in the nursery, not during the teen years, but in the quiet stretch of old age, when the house is silent and the children no longer need you. You sit at the kitchen table, perhaps with a cup of tea that's grown cold and a heart that has started to ask softer, slower questions. Did I love well enough? Where did the time go? Would they still recognize me, not as their parent, but as a soul learning to love? It's here, in this reflective stillness, that a deeper truth begins to reveal itself. No matter how many years have passed, it is never too late to awaken. Zen reminds us that each breath is a fresh beginning, and in that spirit, we understand. Even a parent's final season can be their most luminous. Perhaps you were once too busy, too broken, too afraid to say what needed to be said. Maybe you raised your voice when you should have listened, or withdrew in silence when love was needed most. And now, with time behind you and distance between you, the temptation is to surrender to regret. But guilt is not awakening. It is just another form of clinging to a version of the past you cannot rewrite. Here's what you can do. You can soften. You can open. You can send light. Even if your child is far away, even if there are no words exchanged, your presence still holds power. You can pick up the phone, or write a letter, or whisper a silent blessing into the night sky. Because energy travels in ways words cannot. Your intention, clear, loving, humble, can reach across years and across generations. You don't have to be perfect to heal. You only need to be real. Maybe your child has already become a parent themselves. Maybe they too are struggling with their own patterns, their own karma. Maybe they're carrying wounds you once carried, unknowingly passed down like invisible threads. But here's the beauty. When even one soul in a lineage awakens, the entire frequency begins to shift. Your forgiveness becomes their freedom. Your compassion becomes their compass.
Your humility becomes their inheritance. And this is liberation. Not just for you, but for those who came before you, your parents, their parents, and all the silent ancestors who never had the language to say, "I'm sorry." When you bring light to the shadows they left behind, you don't just heal yourself, you become the flame that warms generations. This is the sacred possibility of elderhood, to not just look back in sorrow, but to look forward with intention. Even if you have no more children to raise, you still raise something just as vital: the consciousness of your family line, the depth of your own being, the wisdom that only comes when all noise has settled into silence. So sit, breathe, remember, you are still part of the dance. And as you reflect on the journey, your mistakes, your triumphs, your quiet moments of grace, know this: your worth is not measured by the number of things you got right, but by your willingness to keep showing up. In prayer, in presence, in love. Let your heart remain open. Let your love keep reaching. Because sometimes the final liberation doesn't happen in the doing, but in the stillness that follows.
Who awakens whom? Let's take a quiet breath together and allow this final question to settle in your heart. Who is the teacher and who is the student? It's easy to assume the answer. We are older. We've lived more years. We provide the food, the shelter, the guidance. Surely we are the ones doing the teaching. But what if that isn't always true? What if the soul of your child is older than yours? What if they came not to be shaped, but to reshape you? Not to follow your footsteps, but to awaken your spirit. In Zen, the roles of teacher and student are not fixed. The moment you believe you are the guide, life often sends you a mirror. And in that mirror, you see not authority, but vulnerability. Not control, but humility. A child can be that mirror. Through their innocence, they reflect back your forgotten truth. Through their rebellion, they challenge your rigid beliefs. Through their curiosity, they open doors you thought were long closed. If you're willing to look, really look, without judgment or pride, you may begin to see. That little one asking 100 questions, that teenager pushing against every boundary, that soul who chose you, they may be your greatest teacher. But to receive their teaching, you must bow, not physically, but inwardly. You must release the illusion that being older makes you wiser. You must let go of the story that your role is to fix or mold. Instead, just observe. Let their presence shape your awareness. Let their needs soften your ego. Let their essence awaken the parts of you that have been asleep for far too long. This shift from parent as authority to parent as student changes everything. Because in that moment of humility, something sacred opens. Parenting becomes more than a responsibility. It becomes a spiritual path. A Dharma gate, as Zen calls it, a threshold to awakening. When you no longer see your child as someone to control, but as someone to learn from, when you stop asking, "How do I make them listen?" and begin asking, "What are they showing me?" you enter the quiet fire of transformation. You become not just a parent, but a seeker. Not just a guide, but a pilgrim walking beside another soul. And isn't that the essence of love? Not to lead from above, but to walk with, side by side, breath by breath, moment by moment. Sometimes the greatest spiritual lesson won't come from a retreat or a book. It will come from a 3-year-old asking you why 5 times in a row, or a teenager slamming their door because they feel unseen. And in those messy, real, unfiltered moments, you are being invited into enlightenment. So, who awakens whom? Maybe the answer isn't clear. Maybe it doesn't need to be. What matters is that you're awake now, that you see parenting not as a role, but as a sacred relationship, not as a duty, but a gift. A child is not yours to keep. They are a flame to carry for a while until they find their own fire. Honor that flame. Let it light your path too. If this message touched something in you, I invite you to stay on this journey with me. Subscribe for more meditative reflections like this, and share this with someone who might need to hear it today. May we all walk the path with open hearts, and may every child be seen not just with love, but with reverence. See you in the next video.